a lot of my colleagues and brethren and sisters out there that served with me, we ended up with some post-trauma after the military, which, you know, takes a long time to overcome. If you even overcome it, you just work around it. Even though we looked quite healthy on the outside, there was a lot happening on the inside that, you know, we didn't know about. Plus, you didn't want to parade to the military with issues that held you back. So a lot of the time, we held on to what was going on deep down, or, you know, if we felt a niggle, brush it off, don't be weak, you know, harden up. That was a sort of mentality. And I suppose it wasn't until I reached my later 20s when maybe the injuries started to arise. That's when you start to sort of look a little bit more on the, oh, I need a bit more longevity. And then once I hit about 28, when my daughter was born, the whole game changed for me. So my health journey pretty much started at a young age. I was always embedded into sports. So I was a national level swimmer up until the age of around 14 and always did well with any sort of sports that I did. I came from the generation where, you know, my father pushed me quite hard, all right, and my brother as well. Unfortunately, you know, there wasn't the best mentality to it. You know, there was a lot of praise when we were winning, probably not so much praise when we were losing, all right, which then made us become very hard on ourselves. But that mentality, that mindset, I found from that, you know, I've always just had like a competitive mindset that went all the way up until the age of 19 where I joined the army. And within my first 12 months of joining the army, going through basic training and getting to the battalion, I was already sent to my first deployment to Iraq. And we were on a little base in the middle of the desert, and you had a choice of running around the 1 kilometre perimeter or go to a makeshift gym. So from there, I pretty much got addicted, 7 month tour over in Iraq. And then I suppose it came into the mindset of, well, you know what, instead of just picking up this weight, looking good, you know, in a t-shirt for when you're going out to town, let's compete. And there was a bloke on my second tour to Iraq who was actually an ex-Mr. Australia, who actually said I had the body to compete. And that sort of stuck in my head. Decided to jump up on stage in my first year of becoming a physical training instructor. So that was 2008. Did 2 shows that year and pretty much just kept on going. I guess you could say in my early years I was a bit of a stubborn guy. I was never scared to go overseas. I was never scared to do any of these things. If anything, I lived life quite dangerously. X Games and, you know, wakeboarding and all these sort of things come into play on top of what else I was doing, and there was no fear. But when my daughter came out, that's my kryptonite. When my daughter came out, you know, it's not just about me anymore. Then it was around 2015, a bit of a wake-up call. I actually had a few people around me pass away. One was my mentor. When I went to the funeral and I saw his daughter actually go up there and actually speak through a microphone at 6 years of age, that really hit home for me, okay, to maybe really start to look after myself. But the biggest one as well along that line is I suppose when my father was passing away. You know, my father was diagnosed with cancer. My father was a very outgoing, energetic person, OCD to the extreme, loved his cars, loved everything. And then when this cancer came, unfortunately it was in his heel cut off. All he wanted to do was wear his R.M. Williams boots, and he could no longer do that. When my father passed in 2021, I wasn't in a good shape. Obviously, I didn't realise that over those last couple of years before he passed, it affected me to the point where I was quite depressed. Again, back to 105 kilos, and it didn't look good. I was inflamed to the eyeballs, visceral fat through the roof, fatty liver, just no output because internally things just weren't running or working properly. So, and that again was my wake-up call. And again, with all my qualifications and being a coach myself, I outsourced, and he's still coaching me to this day, and he helped me get back on track. We started working together and weeks went on, and I was like, not much is happening here, which is where then I end up getting a body composition. When I jumped on this InBody device, I could then realize and I could see my visceral fat was off the charts. Obviously, it reflected how I looked. You know, we all look at ourselves of, well, I like to think most people look at themselves like, you know, we've got a Ferrari or a Lamborghini exterior, and that exterior has an interior, and within that interior, we've got our own little engine. If that doesn't get serviced correctly or looked after, it's not gonna run. It'll look beautiful, but nothing's going to run and hum properly. And that was a bit of my wake-up call for me, seeing that visceral fat. And we knew that, okay, my visceral fat at that stage was probably around the 18, 19 points. I needed to bring this sucker down 9 points at least to get below 10. And once we did, it was amazing what had happened, okay? It's like the body went into an overdrive, shifted gears, and things started cracking. Bang, 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 bang. So what started off very slow ended up being like an amazing, we ended up doing 26 weeks, I think we did. And this is where we have these tools now of this day and age, which I didn't have when I was in my young teens. Had I known, or I wish we had this stuff then, you hear the old saying, if only I knew what I knew now 10, 20 years ago. And I really do believe that. Some people go, oh, he's a salesman. No, I'm not a salesman at all, all right? I run off pride, passion for what I'm doing, not just helping myself, but to help others out there. That is where InBody aligns itself. Like if somebody wants to buy a device, it's not just about, oh, here's the sale, let's go, off we go. You deal with us at the start, you deal with us until we leave InBody. Because for us, it's not just about making a sale. We want to make sure that they're getting the quality experience, they're training properly. So we don't turn up to a gym and there's an InBody device that's collected dust that's been sitting there for 5 years because nobody knows how to use it or they're too afraid to utilize this. The education is massive. The parameters in which these devices are giving now, like blown my mind for somebody that's been in this industry for so long. That is why I love working for InBody, and that is why I love the mission goal and the outcome.